Stories such as that Bill Gates created the virus got widely circulated, and another blaming Muslims for spreading Covid-19 began in India before moving rapidly across the Atlantic to America.
The internet is awash with this kind of information. We see it in our timeline, sometimes it's shared to us by friends and private groups. We know it's there. But in these early weeks of the pandemic, we wanted to understand who is really propagating this and why.
Fake news spans the entire political spectrum. On any issue and for any argument you can think of, there's plenty of disinformation and hate circulating. But there's one community which more evidence ties to disinformation than any other: the fringe far right. We've seen plenty of examples of false and misleading narratives, but this investigation between BBC Click and the ISD, a global think tank for researching extremism, is one of the first pieces of research that tries to really understand its scale. We homed in on 38 English language public pages on Facebook relevant to the global far right, analysing more than 150,000 of their posts since January.
What started to stand out were 18 key narratives, ones focused around immigration, Islam, gun ownership, crime.
Most striking of all was that as the lockdown progressed, there was a sharp spike in chatter about the world's elites, the likes of Jeff Bezos, the Rothschilds, George Soros and Bill Gates. Correspondingly, the amount of chatter tying them down to the coronavirus also spiked. Chloe Colliver headed the investigation.
We started doing this research because we were interested to look at the intersection between extremism and disinformation online. And we wanted to know how the coronavirus crisis was affecting those trends.
Okay, so the absolute number of posts today are small, and at a time when everyone's talking about coronavirus, wouldn't we expect far-right groups to be doing so as well?
This was just a sample of Facebook groups that we can get access to do this kind of research. So it's very much a kind of top-level example of the trends and the proportions of the far-right's interest and activity around coronavirus. What it doesn't show, though, is what's much more concerning about the scale of this, the mainstreaming of their activity.
Drilling down even further, analysis revealed how each of these themes interacted with each other.
The algorithm sorted the different far-right groups into 5 main communities based on what they spoke about. There were communities clustered around Judaism, Islam, immigration and LGBT issues. But the largest community by far was interested in global elites and related conspiracy theories.
If you look at conspiracy theories around global elites who are trying to hide vaccines from people or who created the coronavirus supposedly on purpose, those often have anti-Semitic tropes in about a global elite that is Jewish, and that allows them to promote anti-Semitic content with a cover of talking about coronavirus.
The research discovered that along with tying it to elites, this community was more likely than any other to think the virus was engineered, overhyped, or had an existing cure. Ideas that encourage remedies like chloroquine, unproven and potentially dangerous ideas, despite the suggestions of Donald Trump.
Many of the things that you hear out there are what I had called anecdotal reports. They may be true, but they're anecdotal. So the only thing that I was saying is that if you really want to definitively know if something works, that you've got to do the kind of trial that you get the good information.
We have been here before. Misinformation, we know, is a major issue during elections, but this might be a lot more potent. It really could convince people to not listen to government advice about staying at home. It could convince them to not seek medical help. It might even convince them to use untested treatments with dire consequences.
We put our findings to Facebook, who said, "We have removed a number of links BBC Click shared with us for violating our policies on hate speech and the spread of harmful misinformation. When a post does not violate our policies but is deemed to be false, we reduce its distribution and show warning labels marking it as such, which 95% of the time means people do not go on to view the original content." It seems that claims propagated by fringe groups will continue to thrive and exploit the pandemic.
I think that we'll see an increase in the ability of the far right to successfully mainstream their activity around coronavirus as we see disaffection with the public health measures that are in place across the world at the moment.